The following is a special presentation of the Sports Journey Network. Sports Journey.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm your host, Dujunnea Bland. Welcome to the breakdown, and of course, I'm joined with my co-host, Carita Parks. How are you doing, Carita?
Doing good. We're back for another episode.
And it's going to be a good one because the NFL was stacked from top to bottom. Tons of stories to talk about in this thing.
Well, let's not make the people wait.
Let's get right down to it. And right out of the gates, the NFL and the injury bug, you know how I said last week, everybody's crying doom and gloom and no injuries. There were barely any injuries. Yeah, I spoke too soon. Way too soon. As there were a plethora of injuries this week, past week. What do you think about those injuries, Carita? Is this are we starting to see now why preseason is important?
Yeah, that was like my first thought is, and that's actually not something that I thought initially, but with all these injuries, I am thinking that maybe that is a symptom of not having a preseason, but I don't know if it's a symptom of not having a preseason or maybe just not having like a full, like the OTAs and, training camp. Was that the standard time frame for training camp? I can't remember.
It was about 2 weeks late, maybe even 3 weeks late, because most training camps start at the end of July. Of course, it's a little earlier for the teams that are transitioning.
It was the same couple of weeks, though, right?
It was the same amount of weeks, though.
Yeah. But I'm starting to think that it's more of them not having like a standard off season versus not having a preseason, because if you think about it, a lot of these guys getting injured, like McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, like all these guys are starters who would have barely played in the preseason anyway.
Right. And you could be right about that. No off-season workout time to come to the OTAs, get the proper work in, start to get the limbs limber and work on those important areas of your body to get prepared for the season. A lot of people are having to do a lot of work at home because of the COVID. So, yeah, I think you got a point there. It is very difficult to get the proper workout that you normally would at the facility at home. And maybe, especially with these big stars, maybe that's something that's showing up as we, watch Saquon Barkley look like it was something routine and pop, he's out.
Nick Bosa. And the 49ers, of all the teams, the 49ers had like a plethora of injuries. Just
they did.
Crazy.
To key players as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough. But the one that stands out to me the most, because it's bizarre, is Tyrod Taylor. Now, Tyrod Taylor was supposed to be getting a, shot to help him with a rib situation so he could play. Come to find out, it has nothing to do with this guy's chest. His lung was punctured for getting a shot so that he could play. What the heck was that?
I can't even wrap my head around that. You are a licensed physician. There's absolutely no way you should be puncturing a lung. And it was for a rib injury. So I don't know where you inject for a rib injury, but I can't imagine it would be close to someone's lung.
That's what I'm saying.
So, but then again, I'm just not sure. But either way it goes, you are employed by the National Football League. You are a team doctor. And you puncture someone's lung, like, I don't know what Tyrod Taylor is going to do, but there should be some sort of course of action. Like, hey, like, who knows how long that can impact him?
Exactly. And my thing is, my daddy said use the right tool for the job. So what were you using? A horse needle for a human? Like it makes no sense how you hit someone's lung when you're trying to ease the pain for a rib injury.
I'm absolutely on the same page with you when it comes to that.
But somebody's got some explaining to do. And me personally, and I've heard this said, somebody's head needs to roll after that. This is supposed to be
Absolutely.
your starting quarterback.
He
What
was he's
what are we doing?
out because your team doctor punctured his lung. And then I just don't know what the implications of a punctured lung is. You know what I mean?
Right.
So how will this impact him just in general? Like, obviously he'll get back on the field. I don't doubt that. But is that an issue? Like, once your lung is punctured, does it heal? Like, is that something that can come up as an issue later on? You know, I don't have the answers to those questions, but to me, a punctured lung seems pretty intense.
And see, here's another thing. So we know Tyrod Taylor's history about not being given opportunities. And I know I've been told that Tyrod has had plenty of opportunities and he hasn't answered the bell on those opportunity. And I can't say the words that I want to say about that statement on this show because it's a family show. But you know where I'm going. It's garbage. The
Mm-hmm.
guy's never been given a valid opportunity to show that he's a starter. And then when you put him in as a starter, you don't even take advantage of what he does best. There's not a game plan put together for him to have success. So now you puncture his lung, and you know daggone well you drafted a quarterback that eventually has to come in and start for this offense. He not only comes in last minute, but he starts and plays well. Now that's a tribute to Justin Herbert and his preparation. I mean, to be told at last minute to come in and did what he did was
Yeah.
amazing. But this could potentially hurt Tyrod Taylor longevity as a starter, no matter how long or how short it was going to be.
I absolutely agree because before I knew what happened, they said he injured himself in pregame, and I was thinking to myself, what? But I didn't know what happened. But the first thought that came to my mind was like, man, he can't catch a break.
Yes.
And to find out that this was like just irresponsible medical practices. And I saw a tweet, and I wish I still had it actually, but I don't. There was a guy who basically tweeted that this doctor has like a history of issues. I think he had like 2 DUIs, and there were some other things, but he had a long history of problems.
That's not good.
And
And,
I do wish I would have kept that tweet because I would have loved to rattle it off.
you know, what's amazing is that he's actually employed by an NFL team. Now, you have jeopardized, which is a prized player in the sense that quarterbacks in this league are not a dime a dozen, not even a
Mm-mm.
little bit. And a quarterback is caliber, whether he's a starter or a backup, is very valuable to a team. And now you don't know how long he's going to be out because of something an employee did. You have
Right.
to vet these people better, man. Like, you're an NFL organization that has a lot of valuable property. I know it shouldn't be said that, but these guys are being paid. We know what it looks like. It is what it is. These guys get paid big bucks to produce. And championships, playoffs are super important. You can't have medical staff sabotaging your operation when you're trying to make the playoffs. And they really have a good opportunity to do so with the way this whole COVID season has evolved.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
let's
we
just
go.
hope that he is back and healthy. I will say, as far as Herbert's success, a lot of that may have been due to the fact that no one was game playing for him.
Yes,
You know, they game plan for Tyrod. So we'll see. Hopefully, we don't have to see. Hopefully, Tyrod will be back. But if Herbert continues to play, we'll see like how it pans out once people game plan against him.
exactly. And it's going to be an even deeper subject for the football team in the sense that they really have to get to the bottom of it. And I think people are going to have questions if this guy keeps his job another week. Me
As they
personally, he
should.
should
I
be
wouldn't
fired.
trust him. I wouldn't trust him to do anything for me.
If I'm a player, I wouldn't trust him either.
Mm-mm.
So that's a two-edged sword on that one. And we will head to the break. And with this going into the break, we will come back and talk about the Washington football team and what transpired in week 2. All that and more on the breakdown. And so it is week 2 for the Washington football team. And in this week 2, it wasn't like week 1. They took a major L, losing to the Cardinals 30-15. And before we do a deep dive into this, there's 3 keys that I saw in this game while everybody's ready to throw out the baby with the bathwater with this football team over one game. Third downs were a problem. They were 4 of 12 on third down. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That's not going to cut it. I don't care how great your offense is and how great your defense is. 4 of 12 on third down means your defense is out there too long and they're getting their butts handed to them because they're gassed. Just saying. Dwayne Haskins needs receivers to step up.
Yeah.
The only guy I've seen playing and making plays is Mr. Reliable himself, Terry McLaurin. Everybody else, whether that's scheming and design by Turner or the fact that these guys just aren't getting separation, it's a problem. It has to be fixed in order for Haskins to have the ability to be able to have success. And the O-line has got to be more consistent. Now, when you looked at this game, what are some things that stood out to you of reasons why this football team took a major L on Sunday?
Well, you left off at the O-line, and that's definitely a huge issue for Washington. We saw that as an issue in the first game. It carried on to the second game. Like, Haskins is not getting any time to throw. His throws are rushed. He's either not getting the time or they're rushed or he's off target. So that's definitely a huge problem. Like you said, receiver-wise, I'm still trying to understand why they haven't gotten Antonio Gandy Golden folded into the mix yet. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, he had like one catch, I think. But other than that, I haven't really seen them include him in this game. You know, on the defensive side of the ball, I think like you said, they were gassed. I mean, they were doing what they could, but they still allowed the Cardinals to score 30 points. And Kyler Murray, once again, he had over 250 yards passing, I believe. He rushed for 2 touchdowns. So there's definitely some adjustments on defense, but I do think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they were out there a long time. Like, the Cardinals completely controlled the game.
They did. They were 7 of 17 on third down. Kyler Murray was 26 of 38, 286 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The killer, though, he had 8 rushing attempts for 67 yards, 2 touchdowns, 21 was a long. That's not good on any level.
That's what I was saying. 2 of his touchdowns came from rushing.
Exactly. Which added to their rushing total of 168 yards.
He was responsible for 21 of the Cardinals' points. I mean, 2 rushing and then 1 with his arm.
Yep. And you really, I'm just going to put it to you like this. Cardinals were a better team coming into this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Time of possession proves it as such. And also, another big stat is the turnovers for Washington. You can't have turnovers. You can't lose the time of possession, which they lost like horribly, 33-45 for the Cardinals, 26-15 for Washington. When you have that big lopside, you have the turnovers, you have not converting on third down, ouch. That's
And
a loss.
I'm going off of memory, but you have the stats in front of you. I don't believe they scored until the second half. So I believe it was they didn't score a point until the second half, which is also unacceptable.
Absolutely. Third quarter, they scored. And what was that particular score? It was 3 points.
A field
And
goal,
that's
yeah.
been a problem for this team for quite some time before this coaching regime has ever gotten here. You can't keep settling for threes when the other team is putting up 7. It's a big problem that you will never overcome.
And I do have a comment in regards to that because Coach Rivera was asked why he didn't essentially go for the score as opposed to the 3 points. And he alluded to the fact that, he's looking at the big picture and he felt like 3 points was better than no points because he didn't want those guys to be shut out. So that also shows he didn't have faith that they would be able to score 7 points either.
I'm glad you said that because I was getting ready to ask you how you felt about that. And that does prove that. He doesn't have faith that they could get and punch that ball in there to get 7. And you have to do what you have to do. I don't blame him for going for 3 there. But at this point, when you're down 20 points, I mean, isn't it still a learning experience if they fail? Because, despite all of the negativity surrounding this game, they still fought in the second half.
Yeah,
it was just too deep of a hole to climb out of.
Right. By the time they were able to put some offense together, it was just too late. But that is something that we've seen from the first game to the second game is they're continuing to fight, and so that's a positive.
It is. And they will be coming into this Week 3 matchup taking on Kevin Stefanski's Cleveland Browns. Another team that has a lot of talent. If you look at this team on paper, they're definitely more talented offensively than Washington. The problem is, though, Baker Mayfield is inconsistent. He had a great day in the last game, and really he's dealing with the same problems that he's always had. What do you think coming into this game is important for Washington to do in order to have some resemblance or some type of basically ability to be able to have an opportunity to win this game in the end?
I think I say this every week so far, but pressuring Baker Mayfield. But I say it differently this week. Last week, it was because Kyler Murray was too dangerous, and so you needed to get some pressure on him. This week, I don't consider Baker Mayfield dangerous. I think if you put pressure on him and you get to him, you will have success because I think it will be similar to Carson Wentz. Like Carson completely lost the game that he was playing when that pressure came. Whereas Kyler, he's going to escape that. He's going to escape it. He's going to make something happen. I don't feel like Baker Mayfield is the same kind of quarterback. So definitely put the pressure on him, frustrate him so that he does not have an opportunity to get to like an Odell Beckham or a Jarvis Landry.
Absolutely.
And then my second thing would be the offense. Once again, they need to start quick. And maybe they need to try the up-tempo offense because we've seen it twice. Haskins does a better job when he's playing up-tempo.
They seem to click better when they're playing with tempo and dictating, getting in and out of the huddle quickly, not taking their sweet time, just kind of loafing around, taking a nice huddle and being comfortable, but basically attacking the defense. When you look at the stats here, And looking at it from Football Outsiders, they do a very interesting breakdown of defensive efficiency ratings.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at Washington, they rank number one in defensive efficiency, but they are 21st in rushing efficiency. Um,
Yeah.
it plays into
This
their
season,
favor to be able to force basically Cleveland's hand to put the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands if they can stop the run. Um, Pressure
is
up the
Cleveland
middle
the
is
one that's 21st?
no. Washington is 21st in defensive run efficiency. The Cleveland Browns are fourth in defensive run efficiency, but they are 31st or 30th in passing defensive efficiency. So Washington should have an opportunity to take advantage of the passing game with Cleveland on defense. There, in turn, would give them an opportunity to open up that run game. What do you think?
Which we need to see.
Definitely.
That run game needs some work too. So if they can open it up, I mean, we did see some improvement in Antonio Gibson this week, but there hasn't been that long run or that impressive run. They've had a really tough time getting their run game going. So that's not helping the offense either, because if Dwayne Haskins gets in trouble passing, he can't really hand it off to someone reliable yet.
Now, how much is this inefficiency in the run game do you feel falls on the running backs, or is this an offensive line problem where they're still trying to gel? We know how important it is for the offensive line to fire like a well-oiled machine, like pistons in an engine. They have to work together. Is that more of the reason?
I think that's more of the reason, but I do also feel it's a running back thing, because if you look at like an Antonio Gibson, he's young, he's still trying to figure it out. So he's not going to see the same opportunities that maybe like an Adrian Peterson might have saw.
Right.
So I think it's definite, but I do think the offensive line is more of an issue. If the hole was there and it was obvious, I believe they would run through it.
Exactly.
But when you have to try to figure something else out, I don't think our running backs are veteran enough. Besides, like, I guess Peyton Barber, he's a veteran. But yeah, that's my.
This will be a very interesting matchup. And look, this is a young Washington football team. I don't know why people can't figure that out. It seems like, and I'm just going to be blunt here, it seems like when things and change happens, especially Washington fans haven't seen anything of this magnitude since Gibbs 2.0 as far as the massive change.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as they get something, they're ready to piss it away before it ever even gets going. And I see a lot of people complaining, and we often talk about how smart this fan base is, but I'm beginning to question that with the things that I'm seeing on Twitter, whether it's in reference to the quarterback, why this team is losing. I mean, you think that this team is like a player away from making the Super Bowl. And that isn't the case. It hasn't been the case in 20 plus years. So give it time.
Yeah, this is definitely a rebuild year. I know that they came out and won that home game. Like, be happy that they won that home game. That was their first home game in 9 years, I think, that they won.
Yes.
So take that. I know people were expecting a better product in Arizona, but I think that Ron Rivera has been very honest in all of his press conferences, even in the offseason. I don't believe he's ever given us false hope that this team was going to be lighting things up this year.
Nope. He's been straightforward with everyone. And
so the
I think
definitely chill.
Absolutely. Definitely got to chill. And with that, we are going to chill on another break. Like what I did there. Yeah. I'm here all night. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Saints and talk about their loss and what they can do in week 3 when they take on the Packers. And so it was. The Saints lost in prime time? Like, with Drew Brees and all? And the questions right after that game started. Is Drew Brees done? Should they have moved on last year? It's amazing what happens when you lose one game and they blame it on the quarterback. That's like the go-to.
Always.
And I'm here to tell you, when you look at this Saints football team, things that happened in week 1 occurred in week 2. What are the standouts? Penalties, problem. Inefficiencies on offense, still a problem. With or without Michael Thomas. And I don't think Michael Thomas makes a difference in either of these games. People underestimate the amount of weapons that this football team has. 3, defense. You got to find a way to cover somebody, but you got to give credit to the Raiders. Gruden, they found a weakness, and they have an athletic tight end in Waller who just gutted them. And when you are able to have that kind of success in the passing game, they have Jonathan Jacobs. I mean, it's tough when you got a good running back. And granted, they held them to 86 yards, I believe, of total rushing, but they were still able to have a balance there. And they were gutting them with plays over the middle that the linebackers just couldn't handle, which in turn results in sustained drives that result in scores.
Mm-hmm.
But is Drew Brees, in your opinion, after 2 games with no preseason, is he done?
I don't think he's done. I look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady may not necessarily execute the same as he did when he was in his prime, but he still can play the game. Drew Brees is fine. He will bounce back. But I asked this question. Did you feel the presence of Michael Thomas not being there? Did you feel that at all?
I didn't. Reason being because they used Jared Cook so much in the first game. You got Alvin Kamara coming out of the backfield. They've now put Taysom Hill out there as a wide receiver. What do you want him as? Running back, wide receiver? He can do it all. That creates another element. My biggest problem is from game 1 to game 2, I had made that clear in my article that Traquan Smith needed to step up. He stepped up in that Raiders game. The guy who didn't step up is the 10-year pro in Emmanuel Sanders. Now, I'll give him a little break. The guy's just getting here. He's learning the offense. And it's very clear to me that this Saints offense is struggling with timing. I don't think it has anything to do with Drew Brees' arm. We all know that Drew Brees has been struggling to push the ball down the field for years. But that's really not what they do. They beat you with crossing routes and a lot, I won't call it smoke and mirrors, but there's a lot of things where they do rub routes to create mismatches, to create openings in the defense to where their guys can get Drew Brees can get that ball to their guys out in the open space and then allow these guys to get yak.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. This hasn't changed. So expecting Drew Brees to go deep and throwing long balls all the time doesn't happen. When it dictates and they set you up to be able to do something like that, then they usually will try it. But that's not something that's in his repertoire and has been in his repertoire for years, because that's really not what they stand on offensively.
I definitely don't think that Drew Brees is done. It's like you said, I think that there's still some adjustments being made, which is fair for all of these teams. Maybe because Drew Brees still has like a lot of his pieces there. Maybe that's what people are reacting to. But if we are in week 6 and we still got issues, then we might have another conversation.
I agree. I'm a quarters guy. So we'll see what it looks like after these 4 games. After week 4, we'll look at week 5 and we'll talk about it. When we get to the next quarter,
We wait till 6, okay?
yeah. When we get to the next quarter, though, and it's 1 or 2 games into the next quarter, that second quarter, and you're not doing well, we're going to have to talk about it.
That's where my 6 games would be.
Exactly. I mean, you have to. It has to be talked about because he is 40.
Well,
that's 40.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, now, is he done? I don't know, but is he coming to a point where he needs to start like thinking about transitioning? Yes, but look at Tom Brady. He's still out there trying to make things happen.
Absolutely.
It's really unfortunate, but a lot of these guys wait until like there's like a major injury or something, and then they have to retire versus just
riding off in the sunset. High.
Riding off in the sunset. That's what I would have did if I was Tom Brady. You got like 6 rings.
For real. I don't need to prove anything. But,
no.
You know, that itch.
Yeah.
Now, they will take on the Packers on Sunday Night Football. They get another primetime matchup at the Louisiana Superdome, or the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, excuse me. The interesting thing about these 2 teams is they're virtually the same team. They're tight ends. They have 2 athletic tight ends. Both teams have that. They have an efficient future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. They have great running games. Defensively, they have linebackers that can bring the pressure. Packers have the Smith brothers. Other than that, the differences in these teams is that it comes down to efficiency. When you look at the Packers defense, they really favor a lot of things that the Saints do well. I believe they're like 29th or so against they're 29th against running backs and wide receivers. They're 24th in defense efficiency. They're last against tight ends. Those are 3 areas that the Saints have a plethora of talent. And if you look back at the last game, they ran the ball well. They didn't run it enough, but they also, because of the defense, not being efficient, having too many defensive pass interferences that extended drives, same thing that happened in week 1. They had no time. I mean, that was like 72 plays that were run by the Raiders versus their 57. That ain't enough to even try to win a ball game, especially when your defense is giving up 34 points. Can't win ball games doing that. But given these stats, at least when it comes down to the Saints offense and the Packers defense, all the areas that the Packers suffer in are really pluses, even without Michael Thomas, for the Saints. But the caveat is the same places that the Packers struggle defensively, so do the Saints. John Gruden exposed that on Monday night. Now, whether this is a trend or this is just one game, that's something that you best believe Flores is going to be looking at and going to try to exploit. They have the tight ends, the athletic tight ends that have speed to do it. So they will try to hit them where it hurt last week.
Well, if you see a team's weaknesses, you're going to keep going after those weaknesses if you're the next opponent.
It will be a very good game, I think, though. 2 good quarterbacks. I think Drew Brees has something to prove, especially with all the talk that they should have let him retire or he should have retired. I think Emmanuel Sanders hears the talk. And I think Sean Payton will do some things to not just get those guys that nice, versatile 3-back core he has with the ball, but he's going to try to get guys like Emmanuel Sanders involved. You saw Devontae Harris get the ball early, which I'd like to see him get the ball earlier and often. He kind of reminds me of a Steven Sims Jr. He does the special teams and the punt returns, but he's so shifty and quick. You just try to get the ball in space and let him make plays. And each time he's gotten the ball, he's been able to have some success. They just haven't done it enough. So I'd like to see that as well. But it's going to be a very interesting game, and I think people will be pleased with this Sunday night matchup with the Saints and Packers.
Should definitely be fun. Rodgers versus Breeze.
And to close this thing out, this is the biggest surprise of all surprises. When you talk about Duval and the Jacksonville Jaguars, they actually look like a competent offense. Should we be giving credit to Jay Gruden? And is Jay Gruden potentially going to save Doug Marone's job? And people know how I feel about Doug Marone. He should have been fired.
I don't disagree, but for whatever reason, Shad Khan, the owner, just seems to be very dedicated to seeing what Marone and the general manager, Dave Caldwell, can do. See, for me, Dave Caldwell, he's done a really great job with drafting talent, but then you can't keep the talent that you drafted. So that is what annoys me when it comes to that. They played the Titans, which I didn't know if I wanted to watch that game because it just seems like all these years, the Titans have just been an issue for Jacksonville. And it started off a little concerning. One of the things that I saw is, and this was a theme throughout the game, is Ryan Tannehill had so much time in the pocket.
My goodness, he had time.
So much time. So, the defense in general and the pass rush really needs some work. And I want to see that improve. On the offensive side, they made some mistakes early. There was an interception. Then Gardner Minshew got sacked for 20 yards beyond scrimmage or whatever. So it was a little nerve-wracking at first. But second half, they made some adjustments, and they scored in the first half. I mean, they did score, but they made some adjustments in the second half, and they came back and tied that game 30-30. And Jacksonville putting up 30 points is
impressive.
Not something that happens all the time. However, they came back against the Colts too. So that's another thing to note is they've been coming back. So they've also been fighting, and that's just something that I haven't seen in a long time offensively. So I'm really impressed with what I saw on the offense. I think if they didn't make some of those mistakes early, it could have been an entirely different conversation. From what I've seen, and I've been watching Jacksonville for a long time, Jay Gruden is actually doing a really good job with this offense. He seems to be making plays that Gardner is comfortable with, and he's utilizing a lot of the offensive talent. And the crazy part is, this is a young team. So some of that talent hasn't even really gotten to the point where it can be in the future. But he's found a way to get a lot of guys involved. DJ Shark, I think he might have got hurt at some point. They didn't say it, but he didn't come back in the game in the second half. DJ Shark was burning the Titans. Burning them. And then, Laviscus Chenault. We were chatting about this a little bit.
Yes.
I didn't know who this guy was. I mean, obviously I know they drafted him. Don't know much about him. But he was killing it the other day. They were using him as a receiver, as a running back. He seems very versatile. Who knows what they're going to use him as tonight? Or maybe the secret's out and it'll be harder. Who knows? And then the rookie running back, Robinson, undrafted rookie, I should say.
Yeah, James Robinson.
He is doing very well, too.
16 carries, 102, and a touchdown. Chenault, he was 5 carries, 37 yards. He had 3 receiving passes for 35 yards. And again, like you spoke of, Jay Gruden loves versatility. With Chris Thompson, you got Chenault, and then you got Robinson. That's a heck of a you know, three-man tandem right there, and that's not even talking about the wide receiver and DJ Shark and what they've been able to do. Um, you were
Yeah.
right. Turnovers, a problem. They had two. The penalties, another problem. There was 8 for 60.
Oh, you're
Um,
right.
it
That
wasn't
was
as
it.
bad as the Saints with the 10 for 129, but 8 penalties for 60 yards is tough when you are turning the ball over and then you only had 2 sacks for 24 yards. That's not something that is going to be positive for you and going to help you when the Tennessee Titans have been very efficient. But like you spoke of, they were down 24-10 at the half.
Yeah.
Then held Tennessee to 9 points in the second half to close the gap to almost win this game 30 losing 30 to 33. That's
And they
pretty
did.
impressive.
It's very impressive. And they did have a drive where Tennessee did not put up any points, and that was like their opportunity to strike.
It was.
And they just went 3 and out, I believe. So that was a huge missed opportunity there, because on the following possession, that is when the Titans got their field goal. And we were still coming back. Like, we were driving, actually, at the very end of the game. We were driving, and then that's when that ball got tipped. And that pretty much ended the game. Tipped and intercepted.
And I know for Jacksonville fans, it was disappointing because of the loss, and you were in the game. It was a dogfight, and you lose that way. But it's very positive moving forward. This team is working well together. They're a young team. Seems like Jay has got the offense going. And if they can just continue to build on that, improve the defense, things are going to be so much better in the long run.
Yeah, I was like, maybe they weren't being dishonest with us when they got rid of all the veterans. I was like, what? But
Yeah.
these young guys are, I mean, they got a lot to learn. Don't get me wrong. But
Right.
they're playing with heart.
They are. And with that, we're going to close this show. And it's been a great show. Lots of NFL talk. And if you're not watching the NFL right now, you're missing out. It's very unique given the circumstances. And I enjoy watching it. Anything you got coming up, Carita, that folks need to be on the lookout for?
Well, on a PR side, I am speaking at a virtual sports PR summit this Saturday for women in PR. So I'm really excited to be on that panel and talk about sports PR and just give some young folks or whoever is involved, it's not just young folks, some tips on sports PR and what you need to do.
That's important.
Make.
Knowledge is power. Tell them where they can follow you at, Carita.
You can follow me on all platforms at Carita, Carita, at Carita C. Parks. You can also follow me on Double Take Sports at DBL Take Sports on all platforms.
Do it now. Lock it in. Make it your favorites. Okay? I told you so. So do it.
And all my work, I should say, is on Washington is 3pointconversion.com. Mystics and Wizards, that's Sports Journey. And anything else I feel like talking about is Double Take Sports.
So you got a plethora of places you can go and see her work. As for me, you can catch me on sportsjourney.com. You can catch my recent and very, very informative article on Double Take Sports, and I'll be contributing more there. You can follow me on Not Bland at NotBland21 on everything. And lastly, we thank you so much for listening to this show. Without you, this stuff isn't possible. And we greatly, greatly appreciate you listening to us. And with 30 seconds left to go, you guys enjoy it. And we'll talk to you again next week on The Breakdown.
The Breakdown.